135 ampere unit, or the L135. It is prismatic as well. And looking at the V6 over here, again, noticeably the differences in the profiles. The 135 ampere is 738 millimeters long, and it's only 48 millimeters thick. So the application of these I want to talk about in a second, and also how about using inverters and some of the things that people are doing which they shouldn't, and just how to make sure you get the most out of, I guess, the combination between the battery power source and your inverter. So these guys here, if you look at the end of this one, and if I stand it up, there's a 135 at the back there. You notice on this end here it has a fast USB-C, okay, at the end, and also has an input and output Anderson. They are bi-directional, so you could use both these as outputs if you wanted to, if it was fully charged, but more importantly, I would be using something like this, which is just a Y lead. That way I can run 2 fridges if I wanted to, no problems at all. Just remember that's 50 amp max output on the L135. So the maximum output at any given time is 50 amp across the unit. Andersons are all rated at 50 amp anyway. So in this situation here, I've got this in here. And one of the things that this works really well with is when you've got a very limited space in the back of, say, a hatchback, and you've got a fridge that's in a slider, and that fridge is sliding in and out of the vehicle, you'll find there's some dead space between that fridge and the side wall of your car. And that might only be about 6 or 8 inches. And this fits perfectly on the side there. And this end here would be inside the vehicle, and then it'd be running your fridge, for example. And then if you spin this round, like so, then out the back where the fridge is and the slider is, you've got 2 Siga plug outputs on the other end here. So you can have this in there against the wall of the side of the vehicle, and then you have your fridge, and that sits in that dead space because you can't really put anything else in there in that corner because it's quite hard to get into, but this fits quite nicely in there. So does the V6. So these guys here, they do come with a cradle at the base. We only have a limited number of those available, but in those types of instances, most people are going to do a custom install because of the different types of cavities they've got. So that's the L135. All the instructions are also on the back, and because it's Bluetooth, you don't necessarily have to have the screen showing at the front there. So if you look behind us here, there's the 135 up there. It does have an LED screen, and it has all of your stats on there. So it has your load, it tells you what charge rate is, and it measures between the output and obviously the input. It tells you what the cell characteristics are like, so the temperatures of each one and each of the series. So that one there, that's again 738 millimeters by 48, and that's by 322 high. The V6, again 105, all A-grade prismatic, and they all maintain the constant voltage of over 12.8 just through the cycle. With these you can expect over 3,000 cycles, and they do have a 3-year warranty on the battery. They do come also with a 10 amp AC/DC charger if you're going to be charging the wall. On chargers, just wanted to point out that we are getting a number of people that are leaving their AC/DC chargers full-time plugged in, and that's not something you should be doing because those AC/DC chargers, no matter what brand or what they are, they will fail eventually. If you keep them plugged into 240, it's not what they're meant to do. They're meant to charge the battery and then be disconnected. It's the same with any battery. You shouldn't leave them permanently charging all the time unless it's specifically designed for that, which would be like a trickle charger charging at like 0.5 of an amp just to keep your batteries alive. So if you've got a collection of motorbikes or boats and things like that, you'd have them on a trickle charge. So the difference between L135 and the 105 V6, so the V6 HD or heavy duty or hybrid dual, these guys here have 100 amp maximum discharge, so they're perfect for if you want to run a decent sized inverter. So over here I've got a 1500 watt inverter, and you can charge things up. Like I've got a couple of my Ryobi chargers on charge at the moment. I'll just turn it on, and that's a 1500 watt inverter. But what I wanted to point out is that because people are running short leads between the Nomad and an inverter, they're sometimes using an AC piece of cabling because they found it lying around. You've got to make sure the cabling is correct, and you've got to make sure it's got the right amp. So these units do come with the lugs. They're 140 amp rated lugs, and then you want to use at least 10 mil cable, so at least somewhere around about 126 130 amp cable between the poles over here and the inverter. So these guys here, you see they're very, very thick and robust, and that's got the 10 mil cabling running through across to there. So this one here can run 100 amp at any given time. But remember that if you're running a 1500 watt inverter, it doesn't mean you can run 1500 watts flat out, although you can. but you have to remember you're running it at a max. It's like anything, it's like running your car in the red line continually. Yeah, it'll do it, but it won't do it forever, it'll just conk out. So with these guys here, if you're going to be running something like a microwave or a blender or induction oven or a coffee machine, just make sure to look at the wattage and the amp, etc., that it draws, and make sure that if it has a boost or like a pulse when it cuts in, because sometimes they'll actually peak when they cut in, it might exceed 1500, which means it'll trip out the Nomad. It's fine, you just have to take the load off and then put the charger on, and that'll reset it, but you're actually exceeding it, even though the accessory might only be a say 800-900 or 1000 watt accessory. It might pulse or peak over 1500, so it's just something to check. A typical thing that would do that would be something like a compressor. There's no need to be running compressors off these, even though you do have 100 amp output. If it's an emergency, maybe, but you have to look at what is the compressor going to do when it kicks in and the actual pump is pumping. And it will draw way more, probably twice what it says in its watt rating. So air compressors that you're running, the best thing is to run your vehicle, run it off the crank battery, and then run your compressors off that. There's no benefit in running it off one of these because it's auxiliary for your accessories, basically for your mod cons, for your off-grid or free camping style things. So the V6, again, that does come with Bluetooth. Again, LED screens that gives you all your diagnostics. But the Bluetooth on these, it's very simple. It's Smart Daily BMS. It just means you don't have to have a dedicated monitor hardwired to the front of the vehicle so you can see what is actually happening with your battery. So that's one of the great things about the Bluetooth. You can have multiple products connected to the Bluetooth at the same time. You pick it by serial number and away you go. The V6 does come with brackets that you can remove, and they are 2 on the side and there's 2 on the bottom. So the reason we have them on the bottom is because if you are putting in the back of a tray, in the back of a Hilux or something like that, you want to raise it off the bed, because what's also happening is people get the trays flooded, and if that's sitting on the tray, it's going to end up getting water through it. I mean, they are sealed all the way around, but again, it has to breathe because it is a battery. You can't make it waterproof, although they are sprayed with a waterproofing silicone inside and all the connections and so on, but it's still not a waterproof unit. And you obviously want to protect it from the exposure of the elements. So that's the V6 there, and the 135. We don't have too many of the 135s left, but they have, again, a really good application for dead space down the side of vehicles or under vehicles if you've got the space. You just have to measure up if you've got 738 millimeters in length. The V6s, they are 530 long. Again, they're about 322 high. And they are, I guess, more of the mainstay of what you're going to use in a general day-to-day. Then you've got the 200 amp hour that is available. Again, we've only have a few of them left in some stores, but if you want one and you're looking for one, let us know, and we'll talk to our partners and find out who's still got one in stock. There's not many of them around at the moment. And then we have a new number of products that will be coming out in the next 3 to 6 months. So the V6 there, you want to look at our affiliates, get in touch with us and some special offers we've got at the moment. And that will include like your DC-DCs you might have seen, where you're going to be running from a vehicle, which is very important. With these here, you want to be running a proper DC-DC. So we typically are using at the moment a Madsen 20 or a 40, and that's got a solar input and a built-in VSR, so it does everything for you. And quite simply, it detects when the voltage of the vehicle is above, say, 13 volt, and then it starts to charge. When you turn the car off and the voltage of the crank comes down, it switches off between it and does it automatically. It has a solar input, so you can connect a solar panel directly without actually having to have a reg on the solar panel, because it does everything for you. And the other thing I wanted to mention, if you're running a DC-DC on these, then the DC-DC itself should go closer to the battery than it does to the crank. I know for whatever reason that people are being advised or told me that they've been advised to put the DC-DC under the bonnet. The simple thing is electronics, electrical components and all the rest of it don't like heat. So if you can avoid the heat, then avoid it. The fact is that the DC-DC picks up the voltage range and converts it to a stable voltage or current amperage for the charge. And if you put it close to this, it's ventilated in the back of the vehicle, it's out of the way of the heat. And I certainly wouldn't put this under the bonnet, although you could, if you wanted to, yes, it could handle the heat, but I wouldn't do it because definitely it's going to degrade the lifetime of the unit. and it'll certainly make it its life shorter than it would if you've got it in a ventilated area. So always with these, make sure they're out in a ventilated area. The V6s are 61mm thick, so again, they're not very thick at all. And then if you wanted to get some custom stuff done, like Get Good Gear, this is one of their brackets that they use. So they've removed these, and then they've got that, and that goes in, and these were built for, I think, for the Jimmy. So you know, Get Good Gear does some really good things, custom for four-wheel drives as well. So you can have a look at them online at Get Good Gear, and we'll hashtag them in this tutorial as well. So look, that's the 135 and the V6, just a bit of a closer look on how to use the inverters. And again, with inverters, just make sure that you're running the correct cabling, the correct thickness. Don't cut corners with it. Don't certainly go and grab yourself some eyelets from like an electronic store or a Jaycar store and buy yourself some really cheap eyelet type things, because they'll just melt away. Make sure they're like 140, 150 amp, and then you won't have any problems with those. These do come in the units with the V6 as they are. Again, the V6, 100 amp hour constant output. It does have on the end there 2 SIGAs. It has a fast USB-C. It has double Andersons. I'll just flip it around for you, so if you haven't seen one. And there we go. You've got the 2 SIGAs, and you've got the fast USB-C, and then you've got your Andersons here, so output and input. Again, they're bi-directional, but I would be running wire lead off that and just leave that always on charge for my DC-DC, and then you're pretty well done. And that's a simple way to set it up. So again, look for some specials at the moment. We're doing some 20 amp DC-DC, especially with the 1 through 5. We can do a good deal on them as well. And if you've got the space, it's certainly worth it, because if you've off-gridding or you've got a C container and the 50 amp is enough, again, probably run a 600 watt inverter with this, because it's 50 amp max. Again, if the 600 watt inverter is quite sufficient to be running all your charges for your 12 volt gear or your 18 volt stuff, and then run your regulated solar with these at 50 amp max charge, same as the V6 50 amp max charge. You know, you can be running 400 or 500 watts of solar panel with a regulator, and that's going to keep it topped up. You're never going to have to worry about it. And these guys here at that type of thickness, they're really easy to put away behind a cupboard or something like that, well out the way, and you don't have to worry about it. So again, that's the 1 through 5 and the L135 and the V6 105 amp hour. Again, they all come with 3-year warranty, and they both come with 10 amp AC DC chargers. And then look for the specials that we might have on with the DC-DC. We typically, like I said, we're using mats at the moment because they're a really good price point. They're made by a reputable company called Trident. So they're supplying a lot of the big auto parts stores with their gear. Or again, go with the Redux Energide if that's what you want to do, if that's your preferred brand. So they'll all work perfectly with these guys here. So that's the Nomad range currently, what we do have in stock. And again, if you need specialised brackets and things like that, maybe talk to Good Gear. And if there's anything else we can help with, and get in touch with us at contact@nomadpdu.com.au, and we will see you out there soon.